Hello, welcome back. I'm going to spend this episode doing the start of the workbench build that I've been talking about. I've got a whole stack of wood that's 90 by 35. I'm going to double laminate it, so I'm going to have 2 layers of the 90mm, but it's going to be a very, very thick, sort of roubo style workbench top. The surface of the bench I'm going to see most is going to be the top of the bench, and for each pair of boards I want the best of those 4 faces pointing upwards, and where possible I want the densest board on the top. Well, I'm using Titebond glue. I'm using some other container because I prefer these ones to the Titebond ones. I'll usually give these glue joints about an hour, and then I'll take the clamps off and start on the next one. I've got 7 sets planed up so far on one face and one edge, and they're joined on the planed edge. I think there were 23 or maybe 24 boards, and these make up a bench width of 700mm. So now the boards have got one good flat face, I can run them through the thicknesser to give them a nice parallel face on the other side. Now I'm jointing one edge, and this gives me something to saw parallel to later on when I want to get all the widths to match. So I can fit a 2-metre bench into the space that I've got allocated, so I'm cutting these boards down to a fraction over 2 metres, and they'll be planed to length later. Now it's time to saw a parallel edge onto those boards, which will set them all to the same width. This is my happy face. I'm pleased with how those joints have come out. Thanks, Geoff. With my clamps and the clamps you lent me, I think we've almost got enough clamps to take over the world. I've got one long straight edge and some smaller straight edges that I've made a lot of use of on this project, and I'm using the small ones as winding sticks, which is a way of seeing the twist or wind in a board, and that allows you to know where to plane. You can also see me using the edge of the plane as a small straight edge just to see where I'm at with the planing. What we've essentially done now is created 3 beams that are really stiff, and when we were gluing individual boards together, it was possible to deform those boards with a bit of clamp pressure and take up any irregularities or imperfections. Now these beams are super stiff, and you can see me going to extra trouble to make sure that those mating faces really fit well, because we're not going to be able to bend them and conform them to each other. They have to fit, or there'll be gaps. These beams are fitting together beautifully. As the bits of bench get bigger, I've got to use bigger clamps. Yeah, pretty heavy now. I used way more glue than I expected on this project. I used about half of that 4-litre container there and most of another litre, so that's, 2.5 litres at least. So I've been using a record number 80 scraper, and I use that for all sorts of things, but at the moment I'm using it for scraping off dry glue. I also use a Stanley number 4 on this project, kind of configured as a scrub, and I'm using a number 6 4-plane, basically configured as a jointer. I've turned the bench over. It's not unmanageable. This surface is all over the place. This is the underside, and I want to plane this one to be true, just like the top, so I can mount to it with no problems. And I'm using just a smoother with a straight across blade with the corners dubbed over with a fairly thick shaving, and of course I'm using it across the grain, and that's sort of working a bit like a scrub plane. Normally with a scrub plane it'd be narrower, you'd have a heavy camber on the blade and go deeper in the middle. This is still a smoother, all I've done is open the mouth and deepen the blade setting. So this bit's high in the middle, so is this bit. That bit's all over the place. That's pretty straight. Bearing on the middle a bit, so that means the middle hump is humped. Try this on the outside board. Middle is humped here. And those two corners are low, these two corners are high. Now just some final planing and tuning, and those two main surfaces are finished. I still have to plane the edges and the ends, but I think I'm at a good stage now to think about building the steel base and getting that attached. And then planing the edges and ends will be easier. But that'll have to wait for another episode now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.